Exalted Entertainment Radio. This is Kiara D, and today on The Love Factor, we are talking about a woman's security blanket. What makes a woman feel safe and secure? Fellas, do you know how to make her feel like she's secure? We're going to explore that topic today. I have my husband on the show again. Anthony, welcome to the show, love.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Happy to be here.
All right. So as I said, we're talking about a woman's security blanket. I know when we first got together, there were a number of things that I did not know as far as being aware of my surroundings. And so I decided that this would be a very good topic for us to explore because, ladies, if you're anything like me, you come straight from the streets, then you kind of just get comfortable with the way things are. Like, you go and come as you please and you do what you want to do. And so that's why I figured it was necessary to explore this topic. And my husband has a very keen sense of awareness about him. And so that's why I decided this would be a good show topic for us. First and foremost, like I said, I come from the streets. And so I know when we got together, I would just go to the gas station any given time of the night. Right. I would make stops at the ATM, or I might go grocery shopping. If I need to stop by the store, I mean, shoot, if it's 10 o'clock, I'm grown, I'm on my own, I could do what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. But you came into the picture and you was like, I don't think that's a good idea. Let's talk about why you didn't feel like those things were necessary.
You know, just in the day and time that we live in, you know, just being aware of your surroundings. Number one, like you said, you grew up on your own, basically. You come from a street mentality where kind of anything goes. Well, anything goes until something happens, you know, and if you're not careful, and if you're not aware of that, you know, you can be putting yourself, you can be subjectively putting yourself in compromising situations without being aware. Right.
And like I said, going to the gas station, you know, if I'm about to be on E, I'm going to the gas station. It's right down the street from my house. You know, I don't feel scared. After all, you know, I got a little weapon on me, just a little weapon. I mean, I'm not about to pop nobody, but I feel like, you know, if somebody try to walk up, okay, I'm prepared for that. But you told me to stay out of harm's way. That's one, excuse me. That's one thing I do recall you telling me, is teaching me how to stay out of harm's way, because those are the hours that things are more likely to happen.
Yeah, and really it's just about being prepared. You know, it's about being prepared. You want to lessen the opportunity for yourself to have to be encountered with a lot of foolishness that's out here nowadays. I mean, it's nothing to get on YouTube and Facebook and to really just search, and you just do a general broad search and you can see all kind of crazy stuff happening. People, you know, getting held up at ATM machines. I've seen that. Yes. You know, gas stations. You know, after about 10:30, you know, really just from a policeman's point of view, that's the time when a lot of the disturbances calls and things like that pick up for the evening shift, and it's just for a woman to be aware, you know, and her safety if she's single, you know, is you got to be very strategic about when you go out and when you allow yourself to do things. Right.
And, you know, I have a number of homegirls that I see do that on the regular, and it's almost to the point now that I'm aware of these things, I almost take on a role as if, you know, I'm my sister's keeper. And so if I can encourage anybody to stay in the house, yeah, forget how old you are, forget the fact that you hood, forget whatever you packing. You know, if you a lady, keep yourself out of harm's way. I mean, regardless if you're from the streets, or regardless if you got some hands, quote unquote, as people would say. I mean, just really keep yourself out of harm's way, because at the end of the day, a bullet does not have anybody's name on it for the most part. Nobody's name is on a bullet. And if somebody want to go crazy, or a fight break out at the gas station at some odd hours of the night, then you can be the very one that get victimized, or that drunk driver that might be driving down the highway. You could be the very one that they hit. Yeah, you might not be doing anything wrong, but if you're putting yourself in a position to get attacked, then that can very well happen.
Yeah, and that's all it is. You know, it's, you know, if you look at it like we talked about boundaries on a couple shows back prior, you know, what we talked about when boundaries, as far as boundaries was concerned was, businesses operate at a certain set time, and likewise for yourself, your chances and risk of any type of criminal and delinquent activity happening to you becoming a victim does go up, after 10 o'clock, so those are the things that you just want to be aware of, 10 o'clock in the evening, because nobody's really out taking care of much business, in a broad scheme, as far as the general population of any city during that time. And so you're just being careful, when you go out and not just going out by yourself. If you're out during that time, then it's, it's two of you, you and your girlfriend or something like that. But it's, finishing whatever business you need to be taken care of and going straight home, because it's just being aware, that's all.
What do you say to the people who like to go clubbing or whatever? I mean, we've been to a few late night skate sessions here and there. How would you encourage people who are single females to deal with those type of situations?
Well, I'd say don't let yourself be out there all the time. Every now and again, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of movies, new release movies, don't release until late sometimes in the evening, especially like on a Friday or a Saturday, when it's a blockbuster or something like that. A lot of people don't get, babysitters set up, until, in the evening. So then they, they plan accordingly, things like that. Every now and again, I believe it's all right as long as you're not by yourself, But all the time, I think, the probability of something happening, you're just asking for it. It's not a matter of if, it's just when it's going to happen.
Okay, now I know some people are into having a gun, and then there are people who are against guns. And so for those ladies who might be against guns, what can they do to protect themselves around the house or when they're out and about?
Well, here's the thing. If your preference is you're nervous or you're gun shy and things like that, well, at the end of the day, I'm just using myself for example. If there's a home invasion or something like that, probably 10 times out of 10, those people are coming in with some type of firearm. This is not the old days where they came and scared people with bats and knives and all this and that. We're in a very modern combat type of society, or even on the street. A lot of things are, even on the street, a lot of things are more accessible than they used to be, so if you're anyway gun shy or anything like that, that's a problem. And I think that if you're talking about protecting your home, chances are if there's a home invasion, you're not getting ready to do that by yourself against a male who's already motivated against something happening to you. Now, there's different type of safety locks and things like that you can put on a door. But if you think if somebody's running up in a house to do it harm and rob, nowadays they're not worried about beating you to death. They're not, anything with a knife. It's going to be with a firearm because they're readily accessible on the street. And so I think you need to deal with your particular fear of firearms. And if you just can't handle it at all, then you need to get a really good security system on your house to be able to go from there.
We also got to take into account the people that are not allowed to have firearms due to prior felonies or whatever reason. Some individuals are not allowed to have firearms. And so we got to take that into account. How can those individuals deal with potential issues?
Well, you need to check your state law or whatever. But I do believe that, if you're protecting your home, then you are allowed in the context of your home, and then it gets real technical. But, normally if somebody's breaking into a house, they're going to be doing it with a firearm because they're worried. They may be concerned about what the homeowner has on their side of the fence. You know what I'm saying? So, you want to check with your state laws and know what that is, and if there's a right to protect your own, well-being type clause or something like that. That's important. But nowadays firearms is meeting firearms when it comes to conflict areas. So if you have a problem with that, I think you need to address why you have a problem with that and moving forward.
Now, ladies, another thing that I know that we tend to do is, we'll come in at nighttime and we're not scanning the area to make sure it's clear potential attackers. And so that's something else we need to keep in mind. It's like, before you get out the car, check both of your rear view mirrors, look around, do a whole 360-degree view of your area, and just to make sure the coast is clear. And if you see somebody, what should we do? if we see somebody? I mean, do you recommend we just sit there in the car, or do you think it's necessary to just pull off if we're already parked?
Well, the scenario is different for everyone, and I think that it's very important to be prepared for every type of scenario, because somebody might be waiting until you get out of the car. Most people are not going to approach you while you're in the car because you're protected by the safety of the vehicle. So I think, it's important to get some type of self-defense training. I believe a lot of police departments do it, things like that. I think it's important, especially if you're a single woman, that you invest in some type of self-defense class on a continual basis and on some self-defense type programming. And yes, invest in it, because if you're by yourself, you need to know how to handle yourself before a crisis comes. We can walk through a thousand scenarios, but at the end of the day, it's about you being protected and you going home safe and things like that. So, and any type of crime or some type of assault, it can happen at any point of day. Just make that clear. But there's so many self-defense organizations, martial arts, things like that. I currently take one myself. And so I think it's a lot of that right now. That it's important that you invest in it, just like you invest in a bank.
Right.
This is something that I do on a continual basis, because you want to be ready. And if you're by yourself, you want to be able to protect your family. That's very important.
Right.
We're in a world now where a lot of young guys and a lot of the young teenagers, for example, you can just watch the news, and a lot of them don't really care about anybody else's well-being.
They don't at all.
Themselves, So we live in a very dangerous time, and so
world.
Let me say this, and I didn't mean to continue to go on and on, but I'm gonna say this: I take the martial arts class that I take currently is called Krav Maga. Well, Krav Maga was designed in Israel for all Jews, male and female, to be able to protect themselves against any form of attack. Because they live in a very hostile environment. Well, believe it or not, this is America, but this is a very hostile, racially profiling, racially discriminating environment, and you want to be able to protect yourself.
Right. I recall a time where it was right after we had our first child, and I was sitting in the living room. It's the middle of the night. You was out on the job, and I heard and I saw for myself the doorknob turn. Well, okay, I didn't really see it, but I heard it, and I was sitting right there in front of it. And so I looked up to see if I was going to see it turn again. And so when I did, I got up and I quietly walked over to the door and looked through the peephole to see if it was possibly you. Well, needless to say, I called you, found out it wasn't you. But for some odd reason, it was like, because I was a new mommy, I realized I had precious cargo to protect. And so it was like something rose up in me to where I was like fearless. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it was like, man, had somebody came in here and it was just me and my baby, I need to know what to do. I need to know how to be prepared. And you came home moments after that just to check on us. And so I felt even more secure and safe because you came just to make sure we were good.
Well, I'm going to say this, check this out. Yeah, 911 and calling the police is important, and it's an available option. But the response time of the police or any type of disturbance call can be anywhere from 7 to 15 minutes before they get to your door. By that point, most acts of violence and assaults and things like that, home invasions, they say happen in under 10 minutes. So in the time that you're waiting for that to happen, if those people make their way in and make their way to you and you don't have anything, you can be as fearless as you want to, but most women are a mid-size as far as body type. They're anywhere from about 5'5". There's not too many 6-foot women just on the regular walking around. They're normally about anywhere from about maybe 150 pounds. You're not going to stop a 6-foot 250 pound clown who's motivated to do you harm, to be able to take some type of possession or good, whatever his motivation is. Yeah, and don't let him have a friend with him. It's curtains for you. So I think that if you're gun shy, you need to get over that. And there's police departments that train specifically civilians on how to handle firearms and things like that. So many different classes that you can be taking to overcome those, because guess what, if something happens and it comes knocking at your door, what do you have to deal with it? and I think that that's something that we all need to be prepared for, because it happens right in our neighborhoods, especially if you live in apartment housing. It doesn't take much for somebody to be able to watch parking lots,
right,
to be able to know when people are home and when people are not home.
It
doesn't take much to figure that out. But these are things that, when it comes to protecting your home, you need to be able to do whatever it takes, in order to do that. Mm-hmm. And there shouldn't be any type of reservation, because I know, like my father says, if you run up in my house, guess what? I'm getting ready to hand you Christmas and preach your funeral, and you get ready to meet your maker. And I'm going to do that in every way possible, and I'm going to just leave it at that without getting into all intimate details. And I think single women need to be able to do the same,
Now, that's funny. I just want to say, like I was saying, how you came home and made me feel secure. Fellas, you have a way to make your woman feel protected and make her feel secure. I know a lot of times when we go places, you would check our surroundings. If something don't seem right, don't feel right, you like, oh no, we not staying here. Let's go. Or it's even the way you lead out. Like, you make sure I'm protected even when we're walking outdoors and it's evening time or something. You're always watching. Where did you get that keen sense of protection from, though? I mean, was it something naturally in you, or was it something that was instilled in you?
Well, I'll say, first off, before I answer that question, ladies, if the man you're with is not willing to lay his life down for you, there's no abuse going on in your relationship between you two, emotionally, physically, anything. If this is a sound man, a man of sound principles, and he has to hesitate if it was you or him in a conflict or a problem, nah, that's not the one for you. But where I learned that from was simply watching that, from my father. My father taught me how to do that. Mm-hmm. A man was created, his God-given, responsibility was to provide, protect, and to secure, mm-hmm. Provide, protect, lead, and secure. Mm-hmm. And, if a man doesn't have that trait, nobody's saying you got to be some, superhero, body build, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
right.
Assault rifle toting. Nah, but if you, ladies, if he doesn't have that protection way about it, regardless of the situation, you don't need to be with a gentleman like
Goodbye.
that. Because that gentleman's not going to stand up for you, your children, regardless if you get married or anything like that. So, and certain, those traits, they can be taught, but, if you're in a relationship with him, he needs to have them before y'all take it any further.
So was it taught to you? You said it was taught?
Well, I really didn't have that problem. I tell you, we grew up rough anyway.
Mm-hmm.
How I grew up, it was kind of either you going to learn how to stand up for yourself or you're going to get walked on. And I didn't have a problem speaking up, because I grew up kind of a small guy, so I wasn't getting ready to be walked on. So it's something that just kind of came natural for me. And, everybody, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, my father, he's hard-nosed. He was hard-nosed as far as, no nonsense. Mm-hmm. So it was just reinforced even after that, So, and I didn't have a problem. It was natural. Some people, have to be taught, how to,
like me,
harness aggression or how to use that. But, for some people, it just comes naturally, and then, they learn it from, the surroundings.
Now, the other thing I learned from you is not to provoke individuals. When you do come across somebody who might be hostile or whatever, you've taught me how to de-escalate a problem. And would you mind just sharing a little bit about that, like the importance or how to de-escalate a problem? Like, give a scenario or something.
Well, situation. I had a situation here recently. Long story short, I was dropping my daughter off at the daycare, and a gentleman actually hit my car with his car, and he was at fault. But de-escalating the situation is really trying to get out of the situation and really kind of stroking that person's ego, letting them feel like the control when you're actually manipulating. And yeah, I said manipulate. You're manipulating and controlling it really in indirect ways, because the goal is to get out of the situation without having to use deadly force of a weapon or yourself. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to go home safe, live our lives, and really, fulfill our purpose and be the best that we can be. So de-escalation, number one, is really calming that person down without raising your voice or anything like that. It's really is letting the person know, regardless of who was at fault and where the offense is. Check this out. Tactic number one. You know what? A lot of times you can de-escalate the situation saying, I apologize. You if you're the one that kind of takes the pseudo fault and saying, you know what, let's do whatever we need to do to kind of calm the situation down. So if you take the fault, then that takes the decision out of the situation. Number one, who's gonna be at blame. If you take the fault and allow that person, you probably were thinking something else. You weren't. This is not on you. That way, kind of takes the hostility down. And then there's so many other things you can do, and that just comes with practice. I'm sure you could probably YouTube to see how that goes. Right. But de-escalating situations is to keep from really keeping you safe, keeping your family safe, so that everybody can go home safely regardless of the conflict. Without last resort having to use deadly force. Because if you got to use deadly force, then all that other stuff, it's out the window.
Now, let me just say this. My husband is by no means a softie. So just because someone de-escalates a situation does not mean they're soft. What do you have to prove by getting all hostile or by pulling out a gun and just waving it, just showing off? I mean, what do some type of physical confrontation. What do you have to prove? You have a lot more to lose by handling things in that way, because you can end up in jail, or if you have kids, your kids could get taken away from you. They're losing you, and so it's like, why not?
Or your kids could even end up in a line of some type of fire or physical confrontation themselves.
That's right. So at the end of the day, it's not worth it.
It's about going home safe.
Right. And so, especially now that we're adults, it's like fighting. No, ain't no sense of fighting now.
It's actually called assault in a police term. It's called assault and battery, depending on who was the instigator. Right. And both are punishable offenses. Right. So I'm just bringing a little technicality to what you're saying, because it is important. Right. And I just wanted to just interject right there. It is important what Kiera is talking about, because there's nothing to prove now. And if you do prove it, and you end up being at fault, by the jury of your peers and a judge, guess what? Regardless of how the situation started, if you were seen to be overly aggressive and at fault, right, you're going to sit down, like the police say, you're going to sit down for a minute. That means you're going to go ahead and you've caught a case, possibly a felony, and you might have to spend some jail time.
Not only that, that's going to follow you for quite some time, maybe probably for the rest of your life. Right. Exactly. And so it's like, at the end of the day, is it really worth it? You got to ask yourself, is it worth it? And like my husband said, he's taking Krav Maga. This dude be in that class doing some damage to people. You hear me? But at the end of the day, he still chose to take the more peaceful route when dealing with that situation. And so, ladies, especially, again, if you're like me from the streets, I knew how to pop off at the mouth. You think you gonna come at me sideways? Let me put you in your place. Let me tell you about yourself. Let me show you who I am. But now that I'm older, I'm more mature, I know how to deal with things from a more wise perspective. And I just want to reiterate, just use wisdom and caution with every situation.
And really just a security blanket, as far as single women are concerned, and even being married, it's really about being strategic. It's all about getting home safe. That's what every soldier and every military service in the country thinks about when they're overseas or when they're on a mission. And what every police officer, male or female, whatever, that's all they're thinking about. It's about getting home safe. The use of any type of physical or deadly force at that point, if there's no other option, then you've got to do what you got to do. Right. And, and God be with you, the situation will work out for your good as long as you weren't in the wrong. But really, being a security blanket, it's about being strategic in how you allow yourself to move, and it's being intentional, because as a single woman, you never know if your actions are being watched, if you're being followed. You never know if somebody's looking for an opportunity, to catch you at a vulnerable state. And just with the physical part of it, women are physically, bodily more vulnerable than a man is. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's about how to navigate this world we live in, because guess what? We're not in the Garden of Eden no more. We're in the garden of whatever city you live in, and every city in this country has a crime rate. So it's learning how to navigate that to make yourself the least possible chances of being a target.
And like for me now that I know better, I do better. When I have, say, we have 2 kids, and so when it's just me coming home in the evening and my husband is not available to accompany me into the house, first thing I do, like I said, look all the way around 360, make sure the coast is clear, and if it is somebody out there, I'm paying attention to what that person is looking like.
Right.
I'm paying attention
the
to
demeanor,
right,
carrying yourself,
right, what they have on. You know, I'm getting a description in my head in case something happens. You know, right. I'm already ahead of the game. Right. Another thing you taught me is when you feel like somebody is a potential attacker, look them dead in the eye, because that.
Self-defense, sometimes eye contact and sustained eye contact is the first self-defense, because as humans, strangers, when we're strangers to somebody else, we normally won't hold our glance with a stranger unless we have an intention maybe of approaching them and things like that, and that can be your first form of self-defense. Just for an example.
But the other thing is, like I said, when I'm getting out of the car and I have both of my kids, okay, I'm being strategic about how I get them out the car, right. Making sure I get the oldest one out first, right. Holding her hand, and then I have the baby, and right. I'm making sure my hands are not full. Ladies, this is something that you might want to take note of, because sometimes we come in the evenings and our hands is full of things.
Down.
Right.
2 purses, exercise bag,
right.
Stuff from work.
We looking like the bag lady, and it's like, nah, it's too late for the bag lady to be out. So leave some of that stuff in your car, or make several trips.
And you can also, and just notice, if you're pulling into your own driveway at your own condo, if you've paid for a private garage that only you share, then you're safe.
Right.
You can get out once the garage door closes behind you. But we're talking about a lot of our single women who normally are living in an apartment setting, and even if not, even in a housing area, it's just important in how you conduct yourselves, because it's time out for silly women making silly mistakes, putting
right.
themselves in jeopardy.
Right. And I've gotten to the point where now it's like, let me make sure I let somebody know where I'm at. If I'm going to be gone at a certain time of the evening, I might be over my homegirl's house, and yes, my husband's not tripping on where I'm at, but he want to make sure I'm coming in at a decent time. He want to see me in when I get home.
And let's talk about that. What's a decent time? A decent time, people would think that you might be square or something's wrong with you, but a lot of times, in the old school, back in the day, we're talking the 70s and early 80s, our parents were told to be home before the street lights came on. And if you're single and you're working and things like that, granted you work first shift, a decent time is not too late in the evening. After about 10:30, it's statistically shown that all disturbances calls ramp up and things like that. That's when people like to move who acting a fool. Normally in the daytime, a lot of people don't like to do dirt in the daytime as far as criminal activities
like
concerned.
They say, freaks come out at night.
Right. As far as criminal activities concerned, because you can easily identify people in the daytime, getaway cars in the day, more easily to be identified. If you're doing things in the nighttime, you're under the cloak of darkness. A lot of times the possibility of you getting away and getting, being clear of something and something right. not happening from an agitator standpoint, you got a more good possibility of doing that, in the dark.
And the other thing is, if I'm sitting in my car waiting on somebody, like say, for instance, I'm going to pick up my homegirl in the evening time, it's dark outside, I'm sitting in there waiting on her. I'm not sitting there just occupied by Facebook or whatever's on my phone. I'm also looking around. I'm continuously scanning the area. Yes, I might glance on my phone a few times here and there, but I'm conscious about what's going on in my surroundings. I'm making an extra effort to be alert and be aware of who's walking the neighborhood or who's doing what, or if something looks odd, So just take note of that. Finally, one of the last pointers I want to make sure we hit on is, and I see this among my homegirls a lot, when you're about to leave or when you're answering the door, if you got a peephole, use it. Use that peephole every time you're about to open up that door, whether you're coming or you're just about to, whether you're about to leave or if you're just answering somebody that might be knocking at your door. Right. Always scan the area first, and you want to make sure whoever's on the other side of that peephole is somebody legit. I had somebody come knock on my door one time talking about they the pizza man. Did not have not one piece of logo on their shirt or anything, and I didn't even order a pizza. So trust and believe that door did not get open, because if I don't know anything about you, I don't know you or anything, nah, I'm not about to give you easy access to my apartment, to my home. And so just make sure you use that peephole. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to share. Anything else you had to say?
No, you do an excellent job.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in to another edition of The Love Factor. Again, we'll be right back next Saturday. You can catch us right here, same time, same place. Until then, be blessed. Be blessed.